Hello, my name is JC Jack, and I hope to be doing my paper presentation on Woman v. Goddess, a role comparison between ancient Roman women and their literary goddess counterparts. So we have my thesis statement, which is in Virgil's Aeneid, Dido and Camilla are mortal counterparts to the goddesses Juno and Venus. This is emphasized through the portrayal of societal expectations, differences in power and agency, and the power of resistance. I will mostly explore these once we get into the characters, especially in terms of their relationships with each other, even if it's not direct communication, such as with Venus and Juno. So we have a quick overview of Virgil's Aeneid, which is an epic poem that follows the adventures and challenges that Aeneas faces. He is a Trojan hero who is trying to make his way to Italy, and they're trying to attempt to make it their new homeland. So it's mostly them, and then with the introduction of those female characters, especially the goddesses and mortal women. And then we have Juno and Venus. These are the two goddesses that are playing an active role. Juno is the goddess of marriage and childbirth and is mostly a major opponent to Aeneas. And then Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, is his mother and is trying to aid Aeneas in his journey. She is usually in direct competition against Juno in terms of this. And then finally, we have Dido and Camilla, which are the two mortal women who play an active role in the poem. Dido is the Queen of Carthage and is used within the poem to the discretion of the goddesses. She's the most manipulated out of them. But yeah, so she definitely suffers at the hands of the goddesses and but still presents that idea of femininity and vulnerability that isn't shown with Camilla, who is the female warrior who illustrates the break of societal norms. And that's it for my overview. On we go to Juno and Venus. So, Juno, or Hera, like I said, she is the goddess of marriage and childbirth as well as motherhood. So, she in general has these maternal things that are going on in terms of her symbolism. She's mostly defined by her resentment, jealousy, and protectiveness. Like I said, she is very protective, wants to protect Carthage. She is in a state of resentment for the Trojans, and she does not want the prophecy to continue. She does not want Aeneas to make it to Italy and to essentially go to Carthage, since that is her thing that she wants. So she does have it out for Aeneas and the Trojans. And then she also has that resentment towards Venus for interfering with her plans, and a sort of jealousy that's very interesting. But yeah, in the poem, like I said, she is the main antagonist. With that resentment, she's mostly demonstrated as a very wrathful goddess. She is very direct with what she wants, and she's not afraid to go get it. So she is mostly in ties with the idea of femininity, especially with her symbolism, but also chaos, due to the wrath that she does have and resentment she has against these group of people. And then, of course, that is in great contrast to her maternal symbolism, since she is a very, at least the ideas for symbolism now would be a very gentle goddess. And then finally, Juno utilizes her abilities and powers as a goddess to interfere with their lives, mostly Ditto. Especially, she mostly takes the brunt of it, but and then she attempts to kill Aeneas at various points, which Venus stops. So it's very interesting to see her attempting to avoid a prophecy while also aiding to it in a sense. But yeah, she is very much a goddess who is built from her own self-determination and does not seek much aid from others. She will mostly be doing this on her own, so she does not have a lot of ability, uh, not ability per se, but doesn't have the need to seek aid since she is the goddess and the queen of gods, since in this sense she is the Roman counterpart to Hera, who is also in that state. But yeah, so she is very much self-determined, wants to make sure she completes what she needs to while also kind of representing those symbolisms in terms of like marriage, especially in terms of Ditto and Aeneas, where she rejects wanting to let them get married because she doesn't agree. Some key differences, though, with Juno and Hera is that Juno is mostly treated as an interesting power figure. She is the queen of gods and goddesses in general, so she does have a benefit of being high up in the hierarchy. So she doesn't have the same issues as most goddesses. And her portrayal also typically falls along wrath, but is not fueled by Jupiter's actions, but her own wants, which you'll see a difference in that with Hera. And then she's also very interestingly represented. She will mostly be focused on as a protector of, especially as a wife and the Roman family and Roman identity, um, which is very interesting, again, compared to Hera. And then for Hera, she is mostly portrayed by her anger towards Zeus's affairs. So Zeus is Jupiter in this sake. So Zeus and Jupiter are the same. Jupiter is Zeus's Roman counterpart, but Zeus, especially in the Greek stories, is mostly defined by his affairs. He will sleep with various women, goddesses, and animals. So he's very much known for being out there. And Hera dislikes that, especially because that is her husband. So she does typically get into arguments or tries to ruin the lives of the women that he sleeps with. So that is a very common theme within Greek mythology stories, and she definitely does have conflicts with other gods or goddesses, especially Aphrodite. She does not like Aphrodite in most of the myths, mostly because she is someone that Zeus lusts over. She, of course, is not painted in the most positive light, so usually seen as an angry, jealous wife. So again, very much there's a sense of respect in Juno's representation, while Hera is mostly portrayed as an angry, jealous wife, though both of them do share the symbolism of marriage and childbirth, and they both surround jealousy and vengeance, but in different ways, and they're both seen as protectors, especially of mothers and wives. So Hera does have an advantage of basically attacking or interfering with women who are giving birth, especially if she disliked them. Then we have Venus slash Aphrodite. She is the goddess of love and beauty. She will be our aid to Aeneas in this journey. She will try and protect him from Juno throughout the poem and is Juno's consistent rival. She represents those ideas of love and femininity, but she also is seen as a protector, like with that protection of Aeneas, and she dives very much into the idea of manipulation, since she does utilize Cupid to get Ditto to fall in love with Aeneas, by manipulating Cupid. But yeah, so she very much does that and also uses her ties to Jupiter for assistance. Um, Jupiter, again, is Juno's husband, so it's very interesting how Juno, because she is the goddess of all gods, um, she is not in need of the Aidens, but because Venus is not queen, she has to still seek guidance, and of course, from Jupiter. Differences between Venus and Aphrodite is that Venus is mostly seen as a guide. She will focus on those balances between duty and love in most of the time in her mythology. And then she could also be seen as a reflection of societal expectations and views on femininity. She's very much submissive, but also still follows that idea of being nurturing and stabilizing in Roman myth. And then she's often more portrayed with the ideas of Roman ideals and identity, like I said. Hmm. And then Aphrodite is more of an embodiment of the ideas of lust and desire. You'll usually see her trying to seduce a character. And then you have that she's mostly viewed as more passionate, not really stabilizing or nurturing like Venus. And then she tends to play the role of an instigator. So she mostly starts conflicts, especially if she feels that her beauty is threatened, which is typically how most myths surround around her. If they're including her, it's mostly in regard to her own um attractiveness, essentially. Yeah, so she is very much, she follows her own wants and she is mostly the instigator of issues, especially if she sees that another woman is threatening her. So Juno and at least Hera and Aphrodite share those similarities where they do get revenge for if they have to, especially if they feel like they're being threatened. And then Ditto is our first mortal woman. So she is mostly a leader and represents love in the story. She is a queen of Carthage, like I said, and she's determined, very resilient person in the beginning of the poem. However, she is the main love interest for Aeneas. Despite the fact that she didn't initially love him, it was through the manipulation of Cupid and Venus, but she becomes absolutely obsessed after Aeneas has to leave. Basically, fraught after this obsession for him, that ends up kind of ruining her as a person since she is so obsessed and so emotionally driven that she kind of neglects her duties as a ruler. And and then for thematic sake, she is mostly just a reminder not to allow your emotions to cause abandonment of duties and responsibilities. And then finally we have Camilla. She is our maiden warrior after all, so she will represent that defiance in femininity and the feminine identity and so societal expectations. Since unlike Ditto, she does not have to follow those things. She is a warrior, and she is mostly portrayed with very much male-like qualities, and so you'll mostly see her in the sense of she is her death is male-like, her descriptions, her the way she is portrayed in general, she is very much masculine, which is very much different from the fact that she is a maiden. She is very much abstinent. But she does challenge those. And she does have that sense of power as well. Yeah, so it definitely is very interesting. The most masculine of the characters is, in hierarchy sense, the most weakest and not as strong. To wrap this up, Goddess V women. The main things that we saw was the idea of power, femininity, and agency that were all reoccurring ideas and themes that appeared throughout this presentation. So for power, Venus and Juno are both goddesses, but they both adhere to a hierarchy with Juno at the top. And then Ditto and Camilla also follow a hierarchy, but Ditto still adheres to expectations, while Camilla, like we said, does not have to. She is a warrior. Then we have femininity, and which is, of course, Juno is the goddess of childbirth and marriage, and she doesn't follow those mortal social expectations, so she can be portrayed as wrathful and not adhering to those. While also Venus is a goddess of love and beauty, but while she doesn't fit those mortal expectations, she does fit the submissive view, especially in terms of how she seeks aid from Jupiter and various other characters throughout the epic poem. And then Ditto is the tragic female character. She highlights those vulnerabilities of love, but also strength as well, especially in the beginning, and her determination after her deceased husband. And then Camilla defies those ideas of femininity as her role of maiden warrior. And then finally, we have agency. Juno has the agency to do what she likes, while Venus must seek aid from Jupiter. This is mostly due to those hierarchies. And Ditto has no agency over the romance with Aeneas, but she does have agency over her entire ruling. However, those emotions are oversaw to the point where she feels like she has no agency. And Camilla had the agency to fight to protect her home against the Trojans. Was my presentation